Foraging is deemed as the worst skill in Hypixel Skyblock for basically everything. I decided I would show you guys how you can actually make a ton of money foraging, upwards of 80 million coins per hour. In this video, I'm going to be going over everything you need to know to make as much money as possible from foraging, as well as ending it off with a test that I do myself to show that I actually made over 80 million coins per hour. One quick thing though, if this video does end up helping you out, be sure to use code MASH in the Hypixel store for 5% off. Okay guys, so I'm going to start off the video by going over what actually makes you money in foraging. And the things that do is selling wood, selling forest essence, selling attribute shards, leveling axes, and leveling pets. The majority of the money you make is going to be coming from leveling pets, but we'll get more into depth with it in the future. So the first thing you want to do to actually get into foraging is just get yourself to Galatea. So there's going to be a quest in the park where you just have to do a couple things. It's pretty easy, honestly. And if you just go and finish all of that, you'll be able to go and get here to Galatea. And then there will be another quest line that you can quickly finish. And then you can finally get into foraging. And it really shouldn't be hard to get. I think you can probably do it on like a fresh account in like a couple hours. So it's really easy. So once you're in Galatea, I don't remember exactly, but you should be getting the David's cloak from this NPC, David Attenborough or David Honenborough. And the David's cloak is extremely important for foraging because it gives you over 102 sweep when maxed, which is really useful. So the first thing that I recommend you do as soon as you get here is go into the David's Cloak milestones and then go and look for the attribute menu milestones and complete all of these because each milestone gives you 5 sweep. So if I remember this correctly, the way it works is you get milestones for actually unlocking new attributes. And this doesn't mean that you have to unlock it and max it. It just means you need to get one of them. So as far as I remember, you need to get all the attributes from common all the way to epic. And then once you finish getting all the epic ones, I think you need like a couple legendary ones, like 3 or 4, maybe even less. And you should be able to max the entire David's Cloak. One of the things to keep in mind is to siphon legendary attributes, you need hunting level 20, and it is a little bit annoying to get at first, but honestly, if you are just maxing a ton of different attributes or just leveling up attributes in general, you can go to the fusion machine and then just start doing fusions over here. And that will actually give you a ton of hunting XP. So you can even make profit from doing that. So if you just go around and look on different websites or just look at different things that you can craft with fusions, you'll probably be able to pretty easily get to hunting 20 while actually making a profit. So that's probably the easiest way you can get it, but another way you can do is just farm any attributes. But once you get 20, you want to go and siphon a couple legendary attributes, and then you'll finally be able to max this aspect of the David's Cloak, which is super important. There's some other things in the David's Cloak that are also pretty important, like this one that gives you more foraging fortune on your David's Cloak, but honestly, it's not that important for profits. It's definitely something that you should do in the future, but it's not a big deal. Anyways, once you have a somewhat decently leveled David's Cloak, it's pretty easy to get into foraging. The base gear I would recommend is just full canopy armor with a toil Tricapitator, but honestly, it's so cheap to get a full armor of Fig. Like, if you look at the lowest bins, they're like barely over 2 to 3 mil. So I would recommend just getting straight to Fig armor, but if you really are super broke, you can run canopy armor. But the first upgrade you should definitely make is to your axe and get yourself a Fig Stone Splitter, which is only like 1 mil, but gives you so much more sweep. Once you got a setup like this, you can basically start foraging, obviously not at max rates, but you'll definitely be able to progress pretty fast, and all you will really need to do is upgrade a bunch of shards and different things that actually require more effort to get more sweep. So I'm going to be going over all the different sources of sweep and foraging fortune, but there's actually a website that my friend made that actually will tell you every single upgrade you need for sweep and foraging fortune, and all you have to do is give it your name. So all the foraging related attributes that you will need are Bambloon shards, Fanflare shards, Sparrow shards, Seagull shards, Mochi Bear shards, Fanfire shards, Crow shards, Huron shards, Gecko shards, Tiamat shards, Galaxy Fish shards, and Tad Gang shards. Then when it comes to gear, you will get 57 sweep from your Fixel Spitter, plus 9 for each of your different Fig armor pieces, 102 from your David's Cloak, 3 from your Mangrove Locket, 3 from your Mangrove Drippers, 3 from Mangrove Vine, 50 from the Hot F Sweep perk, another 10 from the Foraging Madness perk, another 10 from the Early Bird perk, then 50 from the Forest Strength perk, another 50 from the Forest Speed perk, 30 from the Strong Legs attribute, 65 from the Fig Sharpening, plus 5 from Unity is Strength, and then plus 14 from Mangrove Tree Milestone Max. Then you can get a couple extra sweep bonuses from the Agatha shop, this being plus 5% sweep from Agatha's Power, plus 10% from Personal Best for Fig, and another plus 10% for Personal Best of Mangrove. And then finally, you have Lottery, which can give you a plus 5% sweep bonus. So now that you know that you need to get your sweep as high as possible, and you have the website to tell you what upgrades to get, next is the most important thing, and this is your Heart of the Forest tree. So on the screen right now, I've come up with 7 different Heart of the Forest trees for each different level of Heart of the Forest, and basically you can just copy exactly what I did based on your Heart of the Forest level. One thing to note is when you get Heart of the Forest 5, you do unlock the Core of the Forest. So once you unlock the second Core of the Forest, or you upgrade it to max and you get another token, that's why there's going to be 2 trees for Heart of the Forest 5. But otherwise, just pause whenever you find the Heart of the Forest you're at, and then copy that to a T. So now going into what you actually want to prioritize your whispers for, of course, sweep is really important, but one of the things that people do not consider is Luck of the Forest, because Luck of the Forest is easily the best perk on the whole Heart of the Forest tree. This is because tree gifts give you so much loot, especially Foraging XP, Heart of the Forest XP, and Whispers. So maxing this as early as possible is extremely important, and you'll notice in all the trees, I try to rush this perk as fast as possible. It's also super cheap, only being 1 mil Whispers to max, so there's basically no reason for you to not max this perk ASAP. Then looking at the rest of the perks, it's mostly up to personal preference. Of course, since everything becomes way harder to level up as you get higher levels, you do want to split your whispers just like you would for Heart of the Mountain tree. But I would recommend focusing on anything that gives sweep, and then Efficient Forager as it also gives wisdom. Otherwise, there's nothing that's really too important. Galatea's Might is very nice because it lets you get more mana, which if you're going to be Ether Warping a lot is very important, especially if you don't have too much magical power. But things like Hunter's Luck can be a little bit nice. I think it affects the chances of you getting shards from trees. I don't know for sure though. The Force Essence doubling is also very nice. It's just more profit. And then these 2, of course, are sweep, so they're always important, but they're very expensive. And this one is not one that you actually upgrade, but it's very useful to have when you're getting your whispers up. So this is another perk that I prioritize very early. Another huge thing is to make sure you dump all your whispers into Center of the Forest as soon as you unlock it, because it gives you so many good benefits. It gives you plus 20 forest whispers per tree gift, which is super useful, and plus 2 forest whispers per fig/mangrove logs cut, which is also useful, on top of plus 15% sweep. And then at the final one, you get an extra token of the forest. So this thing is literally extremely important for you to get. So max this out as soon as you can. Anyways, now that you understand all this comes the real grind for foraging. Because foraging has one of the longest powder/whisper grinds in the entire game. To put into perspective, I just recently got almost all my mining powders to max from basically 0, and it really didn't take me longer than like a week and a half to 2 weeks, starting at Hotum 7 with like almost no powder. Currently, I have around 2 times max whispers because I have around 36 million actually in upgrades, and then I have 34 million overflow. And this consists of about 1 billion foraging XP. So if you do the calculations, you actually need around 350 to like 400 mil foraging XP to actually max out the entire tree. So just keep that into perspective, because I think only a couple hundred players even have max whispers. So if you're able to be dedicated enough to actually max out the whispers, you're going to be ahead of a lot of people. And it's also kind of nice because it means that less people can really do the method efficiently. Anyways, now getting into the last main important part of the guide is your tree routes. So this is going to be the bread and butter of what you're going to be doing foraging. You're going to be doing a lot of this. So it is important that you know what you're doing. Finally, one thing before we get into the tree routes. Since we're going to be pet leveling, it's important that you get your foraging wisdom as high as possible, as well as anything that increases your pet EXP. As far as I know, the most important thing is to max out your taming level, because for every taming level you get, you actually get 1% more pet XP, as well as EXP share rate, which is going to be pretty useful into increasing your profits. On top of that, the Beastmaster crest gives you a slight pet EXP boost. Let's just pretend I have 5,000 kills. But if you get this up as well, this will also slightly increase your profits. And then finally, if you really want to min-max, the toucan shard gives you slightly more EXP share rate. So if you're going to be EXP sharing pets, which you should be doing, you're going to be getting slightly more profit. So now to the foraging route. So I wouldn't necessarily say there is a direct route that you have to take, but the main important thing that you do need to know is that you need to break only the big trees. This is because the big trees give way more stats. For example, let's go break this tiny tree right here. It'll be really fast since, of course, I have a high sweep. But here we can see that we get about 3,000 foraging XP, 6 foraging essence, and 80 whispers. Now, on the other hand, let's go and break this tree over here. We'll see we instead get 16 foraging essence, 9,000 foraging XP, and 320 whispers. That's literally 4 times the whispers, 4 times the essence, and 3 times the XP. And let's be honest, it does not take that much longer to break a big tree. So as long as you can break a big tree in the time it takes you to break 3 small trees, you should always be doing the big ones. Okay, so now I'm going over the route that I like to use. There's not a specific route you need to do. It just needs to be that you hit all the big trees. I found that this is probably the fastest route that exists because of the perfect ways that you can eat the warp around. But otherwise, it doesn't really matter. So one thing you'll notice is that I'm actually double jumping, and that's because I'm using primordial boots. It is more efficient to do something like this, where you teleport onto the block with ether warp and then just break the tree like that. But I personally do not find that fun, so I rather use I'd rather use double jump instead. So the other thing you'll probably notice is that I'm not ether warping with my AOTB, and I'm actually ether warping with the conduit itself. The reason is if you use primordial boots or any double jump boots like tarantula or spider, you'll notice that it takes priority over the shifting that lets you ether warp. So to get around that, what I do is I actually use an ether warp conduit instead, which lets me ether warp without actually having to hold shift. And that basically lets me do my entire route. So just pretend I broke this tree. And then, yeah, that makes it way easier to get like good rates with ether warping while still using primordial boots, which I find is way more fun to forage. But honestly, it's all preference. If you liked to just teleport at the top and break the trees, more power to you, but I personally don't. And yeah, that's basically the entire route. So that's basically all you need to know about foraging. You're just going to have to grind a ton of whispers to actually start getting some good rates. And make sure you level up whichever pet is the most profitable, because you get so much foraging XP that you can literally level up any pet. You're probably wondering how to find out which pets are the best for leveling, and it's actually pretty easy. If you join my Discord, you can see this Discord bot in my server that actually tells you the best pet to level up at the current moment. So if you join my Discord, you can come and get this, as well as all my info for my mod packs and resource packs if you're interested in that, and just people who know a decent amount about foraging. And to prove it to you, I've done a couple hour test, and I'm going to go over all the profits I made and how long it took me to make all that money. Okay, so it's been a bit, but I'm pretty sure everything that I got from foraging has finally sold, so we can finally see all the profits. Let's first start out with the lesser of the total, but still a lot of money, which is going to be everything in the bazaar, and that is around 90 mil. This might have a couple of my co-op member stuff, but I don't think so. This is the amount of Agatha coupons we got. You'll notice it's more than exactly like 2.5 to 3 hours, which is how long it took me to grind all this. And that's because I just don't do it all at once. So I end up participating in more than just one contest. This is like more realistic to the average player because most of the time you're not going to be grinding for 3 hours straight or 2.5 hours straight. You're probably only going to grind for like 20 something minutes and you're probably going to participate in a ton of different contests. But if you want, you can just like divide this by a shit ton or just like remove this from the total at all. Also, you'll notice I have a little bit of money in my purse. This is because this is what I claimed from like some signal enhancers that I sold or something. So I'm going to claim that. Then we have tenderwood, obviously just something that drops from trees, not too much, like 2.2 mil. Then we have forest essence, which is at a pretty decent price now. So we got a good like 30 mil from that, which over like 2.5 hours is pretty good. Then for fixstone, we got a decent chunk from fixstone, around 36.5 mil. Actually, if we add this, about 37 mil. So that's pretty standard for around 2.5 hours of foraging. Then we got a couple chameleon shards. I do think we did pretty okay, pretty average in terms of rates. Maybe we got a little bit unlucky. And apparently there's a game update. Alright, then after chameleon shards, we have hummingbird shards. This is usually the amount I got. I think this is actually a little bit better than average because I get a lot closer to the amount of chameleon shards that I do hummingbird shards. So getting around double is a lot better than usual, but it's not a big difference. Then starlin prizes, I guess you get those. It's not a big profit. So we'll claim those. And then finally, just a couple tenderwood that I sold. So after all of that, it brings us to around 90 million coins from everything that isn't an AH drop. So if you were looking at the amount of profits you can get in 2.5 hours from just bizarre sellable things, then it would be around 30 mil an hour, maybe even more, around 35 mil an hour, which is pretty good. But now for the big profits. If we go to the auction house, we will see the majority of our profits. And we will see that I have over 347 million coins to claim. So one of these things is one of the axes I sold. I definitely think if I waited longer, I could have sold it for more, but I wanted to get this video out faster, so I just put it for cheaper. But 30 million is still a pretty good profit. Then our mosquito, which made us a shit ton of money, by selling for 275 mil, which was just the lowest bid. And if you don't believe me that these sell, you can check Cofflenet and even ask my co-op member who's been foraging and making a shit ton from selling these pets. Then we just have signal enhancers, which are a bunch of slop. They make like nothing. But then another big thing is these hunt axes that you craft with stretching sticks. So what I do is I go and buy all the vine sap from the bazaar and just craft them into hunt axes and then sell them. So now if we click this bucket, we will claim all the coins. And now we have 434 mil after all of that foraging. And then finally, we need to remove all the extra money that it costed me to craft everything and subtract that from the total. So I'm going to create a buy order with all that money. This is just to keep the money out because I cannot deposit it in the bank right now. So if we do this, we will see that I have 248 million coins in about 2.5 hours. So then if we do the math and divide that by 2.5, that gives us 100 million coins per hour. But even if we want to be on the safer side and say it took me 3 hours, which is probably a little bit of overkill, especially for the high level foragers, I would have made a total of 82 million coins per hour. So basically, you really got to tap into foraging if you want to make any money.